congratulations on A Pebble in the Pond. How has this release kind of been for you guys, both building up to it and having it out?
Exciting.
Definitely exciting, and a learning process, because the distribution process for filmmaking, we've done, the Ann Ash shorts, and both of us have separately done numerous projects, but distribution is kind of a beast unto itself. And so it's been good because just learning and getting more aware of how that process works and getting some insight into it. But it's exciting because the film can be seen. You can go onto Amazon, you can go onto iTunes. So it's really nice. It's a nice experience to be able to tell people, hey, just search A Pebble in the Pond.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, have you guys had any feedback from the public after watching it and releasing it?
Yes, it's been wonderful. It's everybody that's written us has given us a beautiful review and told us how much they loved it and how it inspired them to do something for somebody else. And that's exactly what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that there are people who are watching who need some help for their children, and will call an assistance league now because we've made it available in a big way.
Actually, Ann doesn't know this yet either. A friend of mine who I met, she worked at a dry cleaner, and we've kept in touch, and she does her own business now, and she has a young kid. And after watching the film, she was like, I had no idea that there were programs like this available. And she's probably somebody who would qualify. So she said, I'm going to look into it. So I was like, that's just
wonderful.
very cool. Yeah.
That's just what we want.
Yeah, that's amazing. And obviously, this is a very important topic. Was there kind of, I guess, a struggle or worry when bringing this film to life that you had to do it a certain amount of justice with the stories that come with it?
Oh, absolutely. For me, we were interviewing people, and I've explained to people the process of a documentary. It's not like a scripted, obviously, and you kind of have a beginning, middle, and end, obviously, for scripted, and things may change ultimately in the editing process. But for a documentary, you sometimes don't even know what your story is. You have a concept, or you have like, oh, this is a cool interview, but you don't know what the actual story is going to be. So, and Ann and I talked about this a lot. I was always very conscious of people were telling us their stories. It was not something that was a script. It was their life. And so, Ann's such a great interviewer, interviewee too, but whatever. He's good at both of the things. That it was great because they would confide and share things sometimes that they've never shared before. So I felt a heightened responsibility, obviously, to be very conscious that this isn't just entertainment. These are people's stories in their life. And I feel very proud of the final product, which is a process you go through, because in the edit, it's like, oh, this person, it's not coming off right. Or, so it was definitely important to me to tell their stories in a way that really let them shine, but also kept them in, and was very conscious of the fact that they may, have never told friends or family these things.
What I love is that someone asked me, how did Paul feel about things he cut? Would he have liked to have had it in there, things that were originally in the film? And I said, yes, everything. He cared about every minute of his show. And to get him to cut anything, it was a work of love. And it was like cutting out his heart.
Yeah, the first version of the film, not the one that's available now, was considerably longer.
Like 3 hours? Like how
it was
long?
like 2.5. I mean, it was very long. And I think you're more precious, and Ann's totally right. Like initially it was just so hard to cut anything because it's very precious to me, because I have a personal now relationship with these people, and we've, talked to them. But eventually it's kind of that the good of the many outweigh the good of the few. Like you have to make choices for the film and for audiences, because you want them to be able to hear and enjoy the subject. And if it's, 2.5 hours, they've zoned out, an hour and a half ago.
Yes, but Paul, I know you got to hear the stories, but Anne, what was that like sitting there and getting to interview them and personally like get a glimpse into their stories?
Oh, I just, it was so important. And I felt I'm really privileged that they would talk to me. And the fact that they were being so personal about their lives meant a lot to me. And it's very painful because I live a certain kind of life. I mean, there's nothing, I mean, we're not super wealthy or anything. It's just that if there's something I want, I get it. It's pretty much like that. And here are people who really work hard just to make ends meet and who give up sometimes their own doctor's prescriptions so that they can do something for their children. It leaves you in tears. You think a lot about it, and then you think, well, I had very lovely children, but what they did and what they're trying to do it's awesome. One of the things that I loved was that so many of them said, I want to give back. I want to get involved in some way so that I can help somebody else who's, in the same position that I'm in. And I just hope there'll come a day very soon where I don't need your assistance. What could you ask?
That was one of the things that was very surprising, because I think in many circles, and I would go out on a limb and say that there's an assumption that people who need or are being given help of any kind, that they become dependent on that and that they only take. And the irony was we didn't find that at all. We found quite the opposite, that people were ashamed or embarrassed of being helped and that they wanted to be able to take care of themselves. But most importantly, and I think this is the real creating ripples syndrome, which was that they wanted to help. And many of them, even in their situations, Missy comes to mind, she talked about, and actually I think Melanie talked about this too, both who are in the film, that like their kids would give toys once they were growing out of them, they'd give them back. And I think that was, such a surprise, because you just assume, oh, well, people who are in need, they're just going to hold on to everything or they're not going to contribute. And I was personally really relieved and brightened by the fact that that's not the case at all, that people really want to help one another regardless of the situation that they're in.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is such a serious topic, as we said, but there's also so many stories within it. If you guys could describe this film as a whole in 3 words, what would they be?
3 words. I mean, it's definitely 2 words, ripple creating. I think it's very much about the ripples that we set into motion, and the actions that we take, big or small, can have profound impact on one another. And I think it's really refreshing because it's empowering people. We don't talk a lot about this, but I actually really love this as a human. It's empowering because no matter your situation, you can impact not only your life, but others' lives. And it doesn't have to be, and I've said this now a couple of times, it doesn't have to be you're running for president. It doesn't have to be you founded a multi-million-dollar nonprofit. It can be a gesture that is something that helps just your neighborhood or your neighbor. It can be something that just helps one of your friends or family members. And so definitely ripple making, ripple creating. I think I would hang out with those words as a way to describe the film for sure. You have a better 3 words for her?
I feel so deeply about what we've done, and who we've helped and how many other people out there that we can't reach out and help. This organization has what, 125 chapters?
120.
120 chapters all over the United States. And in every one of them that we have visited, we see women who give so much of themselves. I mean, it's such a big part of their lives. And they always say, my children, as wonderful as they are really spoiled because they have no idea. In one case, we found 2 sisters. We found 3 generations, actually, of people who worked, women who worked for the Assistance League. And the youngest of the 3 lives on the East Coast, while the other 2 were on the West Coast. That was in Santa Barbara. And we had to cut this portion, one of the things we had to cut out, because we had so much to talk about. But I love the fact that they had influenced their younger grandchild to get involved, and she was totally involved.
That's one of the great things about Assistance League is it's been around for so long, it's now generational. And to have the example of a grandmother, a mother, and a daughter all being involved was very cool. And I actually don't think that's unique. My instinct is, anecdotally, what I've learned about the Assistance League and my research, and then just all the interviews that we did, is that's probably not super unique, because it is such a generational thing that you bring in your children because you did it. And anyone who is involved is sold immediately, because you're impacting the community. And to experience, much like you see in the film, to experience Operation School Bell and to see kids get brand new pairs of shoes for the first time, you're pulled in immediately. It's like you're sold.
We had one day little teddy bears that we were preparing to be given
in
out
Las Vegas.
in Las Vegas, that would go to hospitals where children, were sick. And that's a perfect place where children, your own children, could come and help. And it's a wonderful way to teach a lesson.
No,
Absolutely.
definitely. And my last question for you guys, I know that you're still celebrating this release, as you should, but do you guys have any future projects that you can kind of hint at or talk about?
Well, I'm always developing multiple projects, and I have a few documentaries, and I've also talked a lot about doing additional Ann Ass episodes, which is really the fruition of A Pebble in the Pond. It was the origin story, because we started with the Ann Ass series, which is short form. And I think it would be fun to do that again, especially since now we have more people who are aware of what we do through A Pebble in the Pond, but also because I think when we started A Pebble in the Pond, when we started Ann Ass, I thought it was super timely, like, oh, this is a good time that people really need good news. And I feel like it's only gotten more timely.
Exactly.
It feels like the world needs it even more now in 2022. And I really hope that others are inspired, other filmmakers, other creators are inspired, because we can change that narrative. I do think that the news is necessary, of course, and you can't screen bad news from all of our lives. That's going to always exist. But the idea of it being uneven or never balanced, that's the thing I really hope that we encourage people to think differently about, is you can tell really profound, important stories that don't make you want to, rip your heart out. You can tell stories that remind people of their power and in their influence in little, like I've said, little ways, or in these larger actions. And so, I think doing another Ann Ass would be a super fun thing to reapproach now, having done a feature. But I also have other things I'm developing and working on with a similar kind of slant where it's meant to inspire people and make them feel good.
COVID really put a stop to Ann Asks. We were going to do something with children, children who had troubling pasts, and how they were helped. And of course, we couldn't do it. And I'm hoping now we'll get to do that one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, congratulations on all the success of A Pebble in the Pond. And it was so great talking to you guys. Thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.